Alright, greetings people of Earth and beyond. How are you today? My name is Chris. Welcome back to another episode of GodnGanja. That's what I'm calling it. That's what it's gonna be. I'm sorry if you don't like it. What I'm doing here on this channel is everything to do with God and ganja. And so right now today we got a guy named Ruslan. He's a pretty cool dude. I subscribed to him a while back. I found this video as I was looking into it. For me, I was thinking about making these videos and I wanted to see what else was out there. And I wanted to basically put out commentary on the things that already exist and then kind of start a new dialogue for things that I'll make in the future. But I kind of wanted to take a secondary perspective at the way that Christianity views weed from my perspective. So this is GodnGanja. I'm a Christian. I know they're Christians, and we're all talking about God and ganja. It's just going to be like a little response to the people who have already talked about it. My take on what they're saying based on the fact that I'm a Christian who smokes weed versus them being Christians who might not. There's also some people who I've already seen who do still. So I'm just kind of trying to make a channel around that. Just get the discussion going. So, without further ado, we're gonna get this going. Alright, Ruslan, this video was made about 3.5 years ago now. So, the legalities were different. I'm not sure what state he was in at the time, but that doesn't matter. He called the video, "Is Weed a Sin?" Watch the full video. Answer may shock you. So, let's see how shocked we are. First of all, I would like to say that I don't believe it's a sin according to the Bible, according to the sins that we know. I believe it is within the category of wisdom and within the category of working out your own salvation through fear and trembling. So, however you would interpret that, you can interpret that, but that's just my belief, just based on what we're looking at right now. Alright, so Freedom Friday, we got this going. We're going to see what my homie Ruslan said. Alright, Ruslan, I've already watched this video, so if you ever see this, just know this isn't like I'm just trying to make some comments on the things you're saying. Alright, so let's go.
But this video specifically is designed to answer if marijuana, or more specifically, if the recreational use of marijuana is a sin for Bible-believing, born-again Christians. So,
alright, that's me. I'm a Bible-believing, born-again Christian, Christ follower, one who is striving to be like Christ. And I got weed. I don't know if you've ever watched the TV show Black Jesus, but I feel like there's a lot of similarities with what they showcase about Jesus in that and then who Jesus is. And I get it. They could be like mocking it, but the idea is that they had to learn about it to mock it. They had to study Jesus a little bit. So, but because this is my channel, because this is GodnGanja, I would like to take a hit off of this. So if you have anything, you can take it with me. If not, this isn't to encourage you to do it. This is just GodnGanja, man. We're going to talk about God. We're going to smoke some ganja. They're going to talk about ganja. And they're on their God stuff. So, we got to talk. All right. Sorry. All right, let's see what you got.
if you're not a Christian, this doesn't really apply to you, but you're welcome to watch. You're welcome to get insight on the perspective that I'm going to share, but just want to get that out the way. Now, I've been getting this question a lot. Last week's video was, are tattoos are a sin? And the comment section kind of lit up. Yo, do one on weed, do one on weed, do one on weed. Now, I honestly didn't want to do a Freedom Friday on weed, but because there was so much demand in the comment section, I decided to cover it. So I think in discussing any controversial topic, it's probably appropriate to put your bias out there. Full transparency, I don't smoke. I don't drink. I don't eat junk food. I'm a pretty square Ned Flanders, but the hip hop version kind of guy. But
all right. We'll put a picture of Ned Flanders. I'm not really familiar, but I've heard the reference. So he already says his bias is that he doesn't smoke. I don't know if he's never smoked, right? He didn't say he's never smoked. So maybe he has experience. But I definitely do think that that's a big disconnect when it comes to Christians who have smoked and Christians who haven't. And then even people who smoke weed before they become a Christian, right? Because let's just say 5 years before he became a Christian, he used to smoke a bunch of weed. It's different within Christianity to smoke weed, like alcohol, right? Like most people don't drink alcohol unto God, but at the same time, a lot of people don't feel weird having a beer with dinner or like ordering some wine. Jesus didn't even feel weird. Like Jesus' first miracle was water to wine, and it was at a wedding after they ran out of wine. So you got to think about it. People are like, oh, well, Jesus not trying to get people drunk. It's like people were probably already drunk. Like they were out of wine. And then he was like, hey, guys, I got some water in the back, but it's going to be the best wine you ever tasted. So the idea of the miracle is in some ways why most people wouldn't even like be nervous that you have wine at a wedding or wine with your meal. But those same people would also be a little bit nervous if you had a little bit of weed or if you smoke marijuana for an ailment, like, not medicinally through a doctor, but hey, I get headaches and weed helps my headaches go away. Most people would be like, really? Yeah, you probably shouldn't be doing that. There's a stigma around it. And I believe the stigma comes from either not doing it while you're Christian or like how many of you after becoming a Christian tried weed and then didn't like it? I was a Christian my whole life and then I tried weed. So it's kind of interesting because I waited till it was legal and legal in my state and all this stuff. So there wasn't necessarily an issue for me morally just to try it. Once I tried it, I found things that I genuinely liked within a physicality basis. It's like, I really do believe that I have a lot of the symptoms for ADHD, which is an attention deficit. And I would say that when I smoke an indica, which most people say slows them down, I feel like my attention deficit becomes focused. Like I feel more in focus with what I would like to focus on when I smoke versus when I'm not high. And I don't know if that's just me, but I've met people who say the same thing, that they get focused, they get more creative, they get a clearer head than they had prior to the hit. Like even just that little hit I took, I feel clear-headed enough to make this video. I don't know if I'm tripping or if you're tripping or who's tripping.
Like I said, my answer to this may or may not surprise you. So even in the context of Bible-believing Christians or disciples of Jesus, as I would prefer to call it, there's still a wide spectrum of views. Patricia wrote, I have an awesome relationship with God, and so do my children. My husband and I like to burn while reading the Bible at night after the kids are in bed. I feel as long as you're not putting your...
Wait. Burn while reading the Bible? Not Bible burning, but burning with the... That's kind of cool. I like that. That's kind of like catchy. I don't know. Bumper sticker.
In a position where you are going to be tempted by Satan, like the Bible talks about, and there's nothing wrong with it. We do it in our own home, minding our own business, not bothering or inviting anyone into our business so that there's no room for any temptation other than fat cakes. We have 5 young kids and need something to help us unwind.
Right. See, okay. Sorry, I'm breaking down your video, but this is the idea. So helping unwind. That is a good point because a lot of, I know Christian women who like older 30 plus Christian women who literally will just grab a glass of wine to unwind. And I don't think it's a problem, but if they saw me roll up a joint to unwind, they would like, it would be a moment of like, gasp. And that's the stigma. That's the problem with this bias. He said, I have a bias. It's like, you don't need a bias. You need understanding. You need to be patient with the people that you're speaking to because maybe they're dealing with something more than just a dependency, right? Maybe they're also dealing with inflammation reduction and then they're quitting cold turkey, their inflammation reduction. You know what I mean? Look into weed inflammation reduction and rheumatoid arthritis. And I'm telling you, it affects the body like that. Same way your NSAIDs and, Advils and all that work. It just works within a different part of your pain receptors, your body receivers. I don't know. I do think the unwinding is important. Should you be allowed to unwind, right? Recreation. Should you be allowed to eat a bowl of chips or a pizza? Should you be allowed to step outside of a disciplined life within Christianity, right? Like, I don't know. Jesus ate with the tax collectors and sinners and didn't wash his hands. Like, sometimes Jesus looked real dirty, but he was the cleanest man who ever lived and the only man who lived without sin. So it's like, okay, I don't even understand how to engage with that. And I don't think it means not smoking weed, and I haven't found a verse that says that. And let's see if he finds one.
It helps free your mind from stress, making it easier to comprehend more complex things.
Did I not say that? Whoa, hold on. Sorry. I turned on the CCs. More complex things. So you get an amount of stuff and then you can comprehend it. You can organize your thoughts. I'm not the only one who just said it. He said it in his video a minute after I said it. It's crazy.
Study high, take the test. High, get high scores. That is why I was a straight A student all through high school, even went on to grad school. So there's, like I said, a wide spectrum of.
I never smoked weed in high school, just for the record.
So I'll just kind of foundationally start. If we're looking at the Bible as the final authority, obviously not the only authority. We have to factor in science, medicine, and just common sense. But if we look at the Bible as the final authority, there's a couple verses people love to point to.
Wait. Science and something? What did he say?
Authority. Obviously not the only authority. We have to factor in science, medicine, and
medicine. Okay. First of all, we know that weed is medicinal. There are medical practitioners that do recommend not only CBD, but THC and THC oil. And the plant seems to have positive effects on the human body generally. Now, you could have negative side effects. There are certain things that medicinally, legitimately are helped by the plant and the extracts of the plant and the inhalation of the vapor of the burning of the plant. Like, legitimately. Like, burning incense can kind of be aromatherapy. It's a form of aromatherapy, I think.
Common sense. But if we look at the Bible as the final authority, there's a couple verses people love to point to. The first one is Genesis 1:29. And God said, behold, I've given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. So it says every single plant, every seed, you should have them for fruit. Or you should, I guess, have dominion over them. That's a verse.
Have dominion over them is different than eating them. If you're going to go with eating, you could say, take the hemp flower, turn it into an edible, allow the edible to go through your liver and your bloodstream. And I mean, you could. Or if you're having the idea of dominion over it, just not allowing. It's like having a beer. You can have a beer without getting drunk because you're no longer, you are in control. It's when you get out of control that it becomes a problematic substance. No matter what the substance. It could be sugar or caffeine or, like how he said, fast food. So, interesting.
A lot of people like to point to all the way in Genesis. So that's oftentimes the verse that gets quoted like, yo, God gave us all the herbs, all the fruit, all the trees, every plant, man, just, it's all good. Just light up, smoke one. It's all love, right? That's one verse. Not to make a character out of people who smoke weed, but
you really just did. Sorry, you did. Tommy Chong did it to himself, probably. There is a character like that, and I'm sure I've met the stoner kid who does act like that. But following in the footsteps of mocking that and then allowing that to be the only thing that Christians know about it is problematic when you actually want to have a genuine conversation with the people who are doing it genuinely, right? Like, I smoke. Like, I just smoked on camera. Like, I'll do it again, just so you know. Like, I'm not trying to be cool. Genuinely, I don't do it that often, like every 5 minutes. I probably do it 2-3 times an hour. I'll hit it, maybe. And that's like taking a sip of orange juice every hour. It's like, how fast are you going to finish the cup? Well, if you're only taking a sip of orange juice every hour, you're just getting the minimal effects. I like the body high more than I like the head change. Once I start getting into head change mode, I know I'm kind of just not where I want to be. But I do use it for pain in my legs and stuff because I drive. So I use it like after work, and it'll just relax your muscles. It'll give you a deeper night's sleep, according to me. I don't know. I don't know if it'll actually give you a deeper night's sleep. You got to test it out, what's around you. But I don't think the plant itself is problematic as much as how you use the plant.
That's sometimes how y'all sound. I guess the more conservative people on the other side of the spectrum will say, 1 Peter 5:8 says, be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. So that word sober-minded is very clear. The Bible says, be sober-minded, be sober-minded. That's all throughout the New Testament. And then, of course, in 1 Corinthians 6.
Okay, but where does sobriety start and sinful high begin, right? Like, what is the gauge? How do you know when you've gone too far? When you're out of control, right? We would say. When I first got high, I took 4 puffs off of a little bowl of some regular flour, and I was tripping. So as you do it, as you get high, the effect isn't going to be the same. It's like alcohol. You'll build a tolerance, and some people can drink like a 6-pack before they even feel anything. It's like, all right, I don't even know what my tolerance is. I would imagine it's low considering how little I've smoked or drank. But the idea is that the tolerance is built up over time.
19 through 20, it says, don't you realize that your body is the...
So where does sobriety start? And okay, when I first did it, I would have said to everybody, I would be like, oh, you can't do more than this amount because you'll lose control. But as I've got in control over it, dominated it, taken it into dominion, I believe you can have dominion over it even if it alters the mind, because the alteration is not as much as most people believe, especially the more you do it. Like, most people probably think Snoop Dogg's like the crazy one. He's probably the closest to normal just because he's not getting the same level of high that he did the first few times he got it. He's almost getting a diluted version of a high. And I don't know what he has and how he feels in the head. Maybe he does what I do and he only hits it at a certain amount to get the feeling that he wants. I would imagine that's how it works. That's how most people I know are. So my question would be, where does sobriety, like, how do you know you're no longer sober-minded? Is it just because you've ingested marijuana, or is it because something has changed about you? And if that change doesn't happen later on, right, as I've hit it twice from a wax pen, which is different than flour, are we taking into consideration how much I'm using, or just the fact that I'm using it at all? Because smoking weed doesn't mean you're high. You know what I mean? You have to get high, just like you have to get drunk. So it's just funny. I believe that's a partial in.
Temple of the Holy Spirit who lives in you and was given to you by God. You do not.
Hold on.
6:19 through 20. It says, don't, of course, in 1 Corinthians 6:19 through 20, it says, don't you realize that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who lives in you and was given to you by God? You do not belong to yourself, for God bought you with a high price, so you must honor God with your body. And some of y'all try to slide that Bible verse into last week's video about tattoos. Listen, man, your body's the holy temple, bro. Would you put graffiti on the temple? And I'd be like, yo, we used to have graffiti at my church all the time, inside and outside. We still have art on the wall. So
the Sistine Chapel, sir? You know what I mean? Yeah, I agree. A chapel is not downgraded because of the art. If anything, the Sistine Chapel is one of the most famous chapels because of the ceiling art. They also burn incense in the temples. I can't quote the verse that says that they burn the incense, but maybe I'll put a verse. We know that the priests for sure would burn things, and that even just the offerings itself would be sweet smelling aromas to God and all that. So the idea that you would dominate the marijuana leaf, you would take the nugs, you can make clothes out of the fibers, you can make paper. You know, there's so many benefits to the plant itself that it was literally part of like America's textiles at one time. I don't even know if that's the right word, but part of what made America make America stuff was hemp. That we used hemp, and now hemp is like weird, but now it's kind of coming back. Like Amazon's trying to do weed legalization, and it's like, how's that gonna work out? Like, are you gonna get Amazon weed delivery now? That'd be kind of cool. Like, I don't know. They're $1 billion corporation. If anybody could do it, it'd be them. The idea that they're on board, well, that's some political lobbying I could get behind. Sorry, I'm also going to rant. This video is more for me than it is for you. But if you get anything out of these, then it was for you.
Yeah, if I could, I would have graffiti up everywhere because I think graffiti is super fly and is one of the 4 elements of hip hop. But that's neither here nor there. So look,
I understand what he's talking about the 4 elements: breaking, MCing, graffiti, and DJing. All right, sorry. Art and expression of the art is not limiting to God. And the idea that, oh, you tattooed yourself, so you've ruined yourself, is wrong. And even he would say. So again, I would say when you inhale marijuana, you haven't ruined the temple. If anything, you've just filled it with smoke, which is what they do in some of the temples. Kind of give the same argument that you gave for tattoos in a way, kind of right back for the weed.
That's another perspective. Now, in regards to the 1 Peter 5:8, be sober-minded, I looked up the word sober-minded just to be clear on what the definition is in the Greek. And the word, I believe it's pronounced nephu. Oh. And nephu means to be self-controlled, clear-headed, not intoxicated, to be vigilant. That's what sober-minded means. Vigilant. So it means sober. There's no metaphorical meaning to it. It means be sober. So we have some dilemmas, right? That we have dominion over all plants and all trees and all these different things. And I will be honest that when it comes to the medicinal value of marijuana, I am for it. I think.
Wait, hold on. This bothers me so much. And maybe I'm just like overreacting. But okay, let's say that I gave you this as a medicine. You know how you take an Advil and you're like, oh, okay. Might cause dizziness, might cause whatever. Okay. You take your Advil. If I gave you this, you would not just take it like an Advil. Even if it was medicinal, right? Why? Because you're wondering how this is going to affect you. You're wondering why it has the little sticker on it. You don't trust marijuana the way you do medicine. Here's how I know. Because you'll take an Aleve straight out of the Walmart shelves. But you won't take this the same way. You doubt the potential of this. I mean, not you per se. Specifically, just in general. I just recorded a whole other video like this where somebody else was saying the same thing, and I've made more videos like this. You can't say God made a medicine and people misuse it. I mean, you can't say that. That would be the only way you could say it. You didn't say it like that. You said you're for the medicinal, but not for the... It's for the medicinal, but not... recreational is where you draw the line. But it's like, why do anything for recreation? Why not just pray ceasingly? Why do anything that brings any pleasure at all? Why not give all of your life to God? And that's the thing. Can you smoke weed and still give your life to God? I would say that it doesn't change you the way you think. See, if you smoked weed and then told me that, then I would believe you. But so far, you haven't said that you smoked even previously. You don't have an experience with it, positive or negative, right? As far as we know. Sorry, I'm rambling again. Let's
comparing it to pills and some more of the synthetic things. I think looking at the value it adds to cancer patients, to people that struggle with their appetite, there's a gang of medicinal value. So I will say that I'm all for the medicinal use of marijuana. The tension that we run into is being sober-minded. Your body's its temple. What is sin, right? And sin,
we should also say, what is dominion, right? What does it mean to have dominion over something? Could I have dominion over a Mountain Dew? Yes. How? Well, one way you can have dominion over it is by not drinking it, right? It's caffeine, it's sugar, it's not good for you, so you dominate it by not allowing it to enter your body. Another way you could dominate it is you could say, I've drank 17 fluid ounces of Mountain Dew, and yet my body has put it through the system, and I'm okay. There's no problem with that amount that I did. If I did that amount every 2 hours, I might get some form of problem within my body due to what I'm putting into it. If there are medicinal benefits to what I'm putting into my body, how can that be sinful? And if I am dominating my ability to stay sober-minded in the idea that I can quote Bible verses and I can articulate thought like this, is the effect sinful just because you want the effect, right? Like when you have a headache and it's due to your nose being stuffed and you take a pill and your nose gets unclogged and your headache goes away, you thank God. But God didn't tell you, if you have a headache, take medicine. You dominate the medicine, or you have dominion over the world in general, by not allowing anything to have control over you, which is a verse that we just heard on the other video. I think you're focusing more on the idea that it's sinful to continuously smoke marijuana for recreation, but the real thing should be, can you smoke marijuana and dominate it, or does it dominate you? Same with alcohol, same with caffeine, same with your phone. Your phone could dominate you more than alcohol. I think we're on the same page, maybe. We just are saying it different, and obviously this is from like 3 years ago, so maybe your
Mission of sin is
views
just
have
falling
changed
short of the
have a couple.
standards of God, falling short of what God would have for us. Is marijuana a sin? Well, marijuana in and of itself is a plant. So
Right.
I don't know if you could say, is poison ivy a sin?
No.
Is broccoli a sin?
Right.
Is
Lettuce.
tobacco a sin? I don't know if you have a clear-cut answer for it. The question
Tobacco's a
should
little
be,
weirder though.
can you consume marijuana responsibly
Right. Yes. Of
and be
course.
sober-minded? I think that's the question. And I think that's
Yes.
the heart.
I think individually though, if I gave this guy, Ruslan, if I gave him some of this, being that, as far as I know, he doesn't even smoke, he would feel so many different things off of this few hits, if he even did more than one, that he wouldn't have a positive effect on him, and there would be no reason. So I guess that's the thing, is why are you doing it? Because if you are being an escapist, using drugs as an outlet, it really, you're not going to escape any of the problems. I mean, they may temporarily leave your thought process, but it doesn't take away the problem. You could drown yourself in anything, alcohol, and you could still have all your problems. So if you're in a state of mind where you're using this or other substances to get that, that's not good. But that's not good on a normal standpoint. It's like when you break up with somebody and you eat all the ice cream. I think he's right. I think it's about the mindset that you get to while you use it. And I think he doesn't really say that because he doesn't know really from experience the mindset that you could get to. What does it mean to be high? Is there ever too high? He's not really talking about that. But I think if you were going to allow it, you would have to allow for moderation on an individual level. You can't say Chris smokes 3 pods a week. He gets too high. Versus Ruslan, he only smokes 1 joint a week. He smokes the right amount of weed. It's individual per person, and each person is going to need more or less, really based on their biology. And that's more scientific than I can explain. So, all right, let's see.
Can you consume marijuana responsibly and be sober-minded? Responsibly. I was leading an FPU group. I was an FPU coach at our church, Financial Peace University. And I was hanging out with this couple and we were hosting classes at their house. Super cool couple. We were hanging out at their house and the topic of marijuana came up. And they were like, hey, listen, we're curious about your opinion. Like, what is the church's position on marijuana? And I was like, well, I don't know what the church's position on marijuana is. I mean, I can tell you what my opinion is. And so we started talking about, similar to Patricia White, they come home, they're tired, they put the kids to bed, they unwind, they light one up, they study the Bible, they talk. To them, it's the equivalent of having a glass of wine.
Right.
I will say the husband in this situation was on all kinds of antidepressants and all kinds of different medication for anxiety. And marijuana really became the thing that helped him cope with some of his, I guess, chemical imbalances that he was dealing with. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, okay, well, it sounds like you guys are doing it responsibly. Let me ask you this. How much money a month are you guys spending on it? And they were like, about $1,500 to $1,800 a month. And I was like, whoa, yeah, you need to stop smoking. I'm thinking they're going to be like, yo, $50, $100, whatever. We grow it. No, they said $1,500. They're going to the dopest dispensaries here in California. We got dispensaries. They're smoking the best weed.
He's in California.
And I was like, yo.
Okay. $1,500. First of all, he said they were in Financial Peace University. So, I mean, I assume that means having peace about your finances. And I assume you're asking for help. Like, how do we budget our money better? So, yeah, they're spending like, what, $400 a week? On 2 people, that's not necessarily a lot of weed. I mean, California prices are pretty high, especially for dispensary weed. Like he said, you could grow it, it'd probably be a lot cheaper. you probably get the same amount for way less. What you're getting and what you're getting it for might be worth the cost, though. So, okay, if he was on multiple antidepressants and anxiety medicine and he has kicked the anxiety medicine and is only using weed and they're both only using weed, $400 divided by 5 days, that's what? 400 divided by 5 days. Why can't I do my math? What's 400? 5 goes into 40. $80 a day? It's about $80 a day on weed. Honestly, they are smoking pretty heavy compared to me even. Just trying to break it down though, you know what I mean? Because the amount of weed that they're smoking, maybe they're smoking like 3 joints a day. You know what I mean? And that's a lot for me. I don't have the funds to do that either. If I told you I smoked 3 cigarettes a day, you'd be like, oh, are you cutting back? You know what I mean? So the amount that they pay is different than the high that they got. And the high that they got might have been worth the amount that they paid, even if it was kind of like some higher up prices. It might be worth not going back on antidepressants or whatever, you know what I mean? So I think the medicinal benefit should be worth the money no matter what. But yeah, that's kind of an extensive amount of money to pay, especially if you're trying to have financial peace. But I get what you're saying.
If you're trying to get out of debt, which was what I was doing, I was hosting a Financial Peace University. If you're trying to get out of debt, you're trying to save money, save for a house, spending that much money on anything, to spend that much money on golf, to spend that much money on bowling, but to spend that much money on marijuana, if we were to somebody tell you to spend that much money on alcohol, be like, nah, bro, like you got to slow down and chill. So I told him like, yeah, y'all probably should fall way back with the marijuana smoke because it just doesn't make sense financially to spend that much money while you're trying to get out of it. That's not really responsibly. True. So the question is, can you consume marijuana responsibly, right? I don't know. Can you consume marijuana and be sober-minded? Sober-minded defined as not intoxicated, as vigilant, as sober, as clear-headed. Can you consume it and be clear-headed? I haven't smoked marijuana in, 15, 16 years.
He has smoked marijuana. Wow, this is great. Welcome. When did you become a Christian? If you became a Christian within the past 5, as of this, right? In 2018. So if you had become a Christian anytime after 2013, I wonder what your Christian mind would think of weed, right? Because everybody thinks of weed and they think devil's lettuce. But like, what if you went into it believing that God made this plant? You know what I mean? Like, that's something that I feel like a lot of Christians haven't really acknowledged. It's like God made lettuce, and he made kale, and he made cabbage, and he made marijuana. And your body has receptors for the things within it. I don't know, man. That's pretty convincing to me. As
high school, probably longer than that. I don't know. I think some people can build a tolerance for it. And I guess they're not as high as maybe someone like me, that if I were just to take a puff, I'd probably be very high. I also know there's different strands of marijuana, things that kind of lift you up. There's things that kind of level you out. And so I don't know. I don't know if you can smoke marijuana and be sober minded. I think that's a question for a Christian marijuana smoker. Can you be clear headed? And if we're talking about sober minded, we also can't be hypocritical in that we do consume food and we do consume caffeine and sugar. And those are all stimulants. Some people would argue that those are drugs.
You could
the
get
obesity epidemic in America, the diabetes epidemic in America. There's a lot of people abusing all kinds of different substances. So can you consume marijuana responsibly? Can you consume it and not be high? I think one, we can't have unjust scales. If you are somebody that's morbidly obese, if you're somebody that is struggling with gluttony, you're probably not in the best position to stake a strong claim and judge your friends that may be smoking weed, because maybe they're sinning different than you are. If you're struggling with weight and struggling with health, if you're somebody that's addicted to pornography, probably not a good idea to sit there and cast stones at someone that may be dealing with homosexuality and struggling with homosexuality. So I think it's a very tense and dicey issue based on what sins you may be dealing with. And again, this double standard that we see exhibited all throughout the church, and we start throwing around these Bible verses. Again, 1 Corinthians 6:19-12. Don't you realize that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, right? We believe that if you're saved, if you're born again, the Holy Spirit lives in you, who lives in you and was given to you by God. You do not belong to yourself, for God bought you with a price. So you must honor God with your body. I believe that verse. I believe that verse radically. I don't smoke. I don't drink alcohol like at all. But here's the deal. I also don't eat junk food. I also eat very clean, lean meats, and I'm very particular about what I'm putting into my system. And that verse is oftentimes used out of context so often. And it's used to say, man, you can't do this. You can't do that. You can't. Well, it's like, whoa. The majority of American Christians are morbidly obese. Hello. You gonna sit here and use that Bible verse while you chop down on Chick-fil-A 4 times a week and hit the McDonald's drive-through and get the donuts?
Right.
That's a bit inconsistent. I think we got to tread lightly when we're talking about how people are dealing and processing things. So that verse is tough because
exactly. Especially when
people use that verse for tattoos. People use that verse for all kinds of stuff. And it just becomes tricky when you're inconsistent and you're picking sins that appear to be more taboo, appear to look a certain way in the eyes of society, like tattoos or like marijuana. All of a sudden, those aren't socially acceptable, but your pastor can be gluttonous and could be overweight and it's all good. And we look past that sin, and when no one ever addresses that, and the life expectancy of people who are struggling with weight can keep going down. But that's fat shaming if we address that elephant in the room. No pun intended. If you're overweight, I'm not saying you look like an elephant. I'm just saying that that's something that we're dealing with in church. And this isn't to fat shame anybody, but you guys understand, like the double standards that we're dealing with are very interesting.
Very interesting.
So can you consume marijuana responsibly? Can
you have a tattoo responsibly? Can we trust that you're not going to put something dirty on your body in a dirty spot? I don't know. I've seen those jokes that are like no regrets, or like the cars park here or something, like, different type of stamps and whatnot. Not everything is like a tribalism. Oh, this is for my heritage kind of tattoo. A lot of them are just like spur of the moment memory. You see pictures of different moments in the Bible at certain churches. You go by a stained glass window and you'll see like Mary and Joseph with the baby. And then you'll see like the 3 wise men. And then you'll see like Joseph with his colorful robe. I don't know. Crazy stuff. I don't know. Can you tattoo responsibly? Or would you not even worry about it? I would say I wouldn't even worry about marijuana. I mean, be cautious with it, but don't be afraid of it. You know what I mean? Don't take it as a joke. It's not just Kool-Aid. It's not the same as sugar, for sure. It has different effects, but as you understand the way the effects affect your body, I don't think it has as many negative effects as people would like to think.
Consume it and be clear-headed, be sober-minded.
You can be clear-headed.
I don't know. I don't know. I think that's more so for whoever's consuming. And I don't.
Let's see how different I get. I'm going to hit it again. It's been like 10 minutes since I started this last one. So let's see if I start to seem less clear-headed to you. You've been watching this whole time. Honestly, it's a personal feeling. It can change the mood that you're in. I think half of that has to do with the breath work you have to do to be able to inhale smoke anyway. I feel like my nostrils open up when I do that. I read that supposedly people with sleep apnea can use it to help their sleep apnea, and I have mild sleep apnea, and I really believe I have better night sleeps on the nights that I have smoke. And maybe that's just me. I've talked about it with my brother. It could possibly just be a placebo, but it's one of the most consistent placebos I've ever had. Most placebos are accidental, right? And once you find out it's a placebo, you don't even like. For me, this is every single time. It's consistent. It doesn't feel accidental or coincidental. I know what I'm doing, and I can get it every time for $50. You know what I mean? Like every time, though, for X amount of money. And I can go get X amount of money. No problem. It's like when you buy a gallon of milk. That stuff goes, or just you buy any kind of liquid, it's going to be gone. What's the point of buying it if it's going to be gone? Why would God want you to buy it? He would want you to make your own wine. I don't know. We could get into what God would want for us and all that. But I believe it's how you affect others for God, right? If I'm in the image of God, in the name of God, in the name of Jesus, the Son of God, as myself, now a child of God, my activity should be the thing judged, not my consumption, right? Same way you would walk past a gluttonous pastor. You wouldn't even bat an eye. You'd be like, oh, hey, pastor. Like, you're not like, oh, hey, you're looking a little unhealthy there. Have you checked your blood pressure? Like, you don't think like that because that doesn't matter to you what he eats. Even though in a way it could affect his lifespan, you're not worried about that. But you are worried about, possibly somebody smoking weed. And it's like, why? Do you know why? And most of the reasons why aren't what they seem. Most of the people who just smoke weed. There are people who have used weed to become drug addicts. And we all know somebody who's gotten on heavy drugs and their gateway drug was weed. But a genuine thing about gateway drugs was drug dealers. And if a drug dealer didn't have one drug, they probably had 3 other ones, So the idea that legal dispensaries is the same thing as going to a drug dealer when they're out of weed, it's like you got to be able to differentiate the two.
Even want to find out. Like, I have no desire to go get high and be like, let me see what kind of effect marijuana has on me. Now, I will say, I don't need to smoke a cigar like our Calvinist friends that like to sit around and debate about theology. And
okay, wait, you could smoke a cigar, but you can't smoke That's weird. Sorry. Why wouldn't you? I know you say you have no desire to feel it, but it's like, are you afraid or do you just, like, I wouldn't go skydiving. Like, some people wouldn't go skydiving. I would actually go skydiving. But I wouldn't go like parasailing, where it can lift you up out of the water. I wouldn't do that. I think it's dangerous. But I smoke weed and I don't think I'm at any danger yet. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I wonder what you would think about yourself while high, because I bet it would be like so minimal. You would be like, that was it? Like, that was my thought. I didn't smoke weed for 21 years. I got through high school peer pressure, no weed. And I had stoner friends by accident. And honestly, I don't think they were going to share their weed with me anyway. They knew I probably wouldn't even wanted it. They were cool like that. They weren't going to like, hey man, you want to smoke with us? It's like, nah, he probably doesn't. And I did it. And they were cool with me, even if I didn't. But later on, I realized like they weren't even like tripping that crazy. Like, they weren't changing who they were altering how they thought minimally, like the same way a self-help book alters how you think. It's like, oh, well, you didn't think like that before. It's like, yeah, but like, you don't become Gary Vee because you read a book by Gary Vee. You know what I mean? You could hear his little thoughts in your head. You're like, yeah, but you're not gonna do what he did just because you say what he says, right?
Cigars, and we have craft brews that we made ourselves in our house. I don't need to do that. I don't need to smoke Black and Milds. I don't need to smoke hookah. I don't need to smoke nicotine. I don't have a desire to smoke anything. And this is the part where I said the Bible is the final authority, but we do have to look at medicine. We do have to look at just common sense. I'm not putting any smoke in my lungs, like, at all. Like, I don't.
Okay. I feel like, hold on. Let's see this. Hold on. Let's see this. Smoking marijuana good for lungs. Researchers say that there is good evidence that the occasional marijuana use can cause an increase in lung airflow rates and lung volume. Volume is measured as the total amount of air a person can blow out after taking the deepest breath that they can. This was in 2012. The medicalnewstoday.com. Smoking marijuana not bad for the lungs? Here, look. Marijuana and lung health. American Lung Association. Let's see. The health effects of marijuana are determined in large part by how it's consumed. Marijuana is most commonly smoked using pipes, bongs, etc. that heat or vaporize marijuana. It can also be consumed through products, e-books, e-cigarettes, brownies, etc. Marijuana smoke. Smoke is harmful to lung health, whether from burning wood, tobacco, or marijuana. Toxins and carcinogens are released from the combustion of materials. Smoke from marijuana combustion has been shown to contain many of the same toxins, irritants, and carcinogens as tobacco smoke. Beyond what is in the smoke alone, marijuana is typically smoked different than tobacco. They tend to inhale deeper and hold their breath longer, which creates a greater exposure per breath to tar. Secondhand smoke contains the same amount. Research on the effect is still needed of secondhand smoke. Smoking marijuana clearly damages the human lung. Research shows that smoking marijuana causes chronic bronchitis, and marijuana smoke has been shown to injure the cell linings of the large airways, which could explain why it leads to cough, phlegm production, and acute bronchitis. It has also been linked to cases of air pockets in between both lungs and between the lungs of the chest wall as large air bubbles among middle-aged adults, mostly heavy smokers. However, it's not possible to establish whether these occur frequently among marijuana smokers than the general population. Smoking marijuana can harm. It can also affect the immune system and make it harder to fight diseases. It hurts the lung defense, something. So that one kind of said surprising effects. Let's just see a positive, all right? Because you're right. It has negative effects, but is it only negative effects? The study found that those who smoke only cigarettes or cigarettes and marijuana saw their lung function drop over 20 years, while cannabis only saw their lung function improve slightly over time. See, I'm not crazy, okay? This is testing 5,000 people ages 18 to 30, cigarette, marijuana, and some both. Okay, so I'm not tripping. There is information that shows that may reduce pulmonary complications. As cannabis use increases, physicians need to be familiar with the effects of both cannabis and tobacco on the lungs. However, there have been very few long-term studies, mostly due to legality issues. Blah, 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 da. The cause is unclear. Marijuana smoke is... Okay. It was previously thought that cannabis and tobacco had similar long-term effects on the body because both cause chronic bronchitis. However, recent large studies have shown that instead of reducing forced expiratory volume in one's and forced vital capacity, marijuana smoking is associated with increasing. So instead of reducing, it's increased the FVC, which is the forced vital capacity. The cause of this is unclear, but acute bronchodilator and anti-inflammatory effects of cannabis may be relevant. More work is needed to address the effects of cannabis on lung function. But can you believe that? Like, they're not telling you all of that, okay? That's just good to know.
I don't see the value of that. Like, why put smoke in your lungs? I just think that's just gross. Like, that's...
In a way, it would be if it was cigarettes mainly, but as we have seen, you can actually improve lung function by putting smoke in your lungs. I don't know. You got to talk to the scientists, all right?
Me, that's just disgusting. I'm not putting smoke in my lungs. I don't care what it is. And that's kind of where I land with marijuana on top of those of you guys that smoke. Consider the health effects that it does to your sleep. Joe Rogan had a sleep expert on his podcast, and they went in depth about the suppressant it does to your REM sleep and you not being able to dream if you're consuming alcohol consistently, if you're consuming marijuana consistently. I'll link that in the description below. Understand what it's actually doing to your sleep. And Joe Rogan went on and talked about how they would do sober October. They wouldn't drink. They wouldn't smoke, him and all his buddies. And sober October, he'd have these crazy dreams hit him because the rest of the year he smokes weed and he doesn't dream, because that's actually something that marijuana does to you. So people use it as a sleep supplement, but it's actually not really good for your sleep. Those of you guys that know what I'm going through personally right now is I'm very on my sleep. I got my blue light blocking glasses. I'm trying to go to bed earlier. I got screen savers on everything so that I don't have the blue lights. I'm really focused on getting really good sleep. So I think from a health standpoint, man, it's really hard to justify putting any kind.
Sorry. From a health standpoint, let me just pull up. I really want to see, because I could be tripping. All right. This is what this channel is for. This is just to see what we're talking about here. Weed and sleep. One study found high dosage can lead to unwanted side effects the following day, such as impaired memory and sleepiness. Marijuana withdrawal can also produce sleep withdrawals, sleep-related side effects.
Smoke in your lungs, it's really hard to justify the psychological things that it can do to you and how it can mess up your sleep. I think it's very hard to say, yeah, man, like you could.
What are your opinions on certain, like Zoloft? Because there's psychological effects for a lot of medicines like that. But I don't know if you would be as hesitant to like prescribe or let people try it, right? Because a lot of people try it. I know people who've tried Zola and gotten off of it. Like they don't need it. What if weed was like that? Are there any ways that weed could be justified, or is it similar to you like rubbing poison ivy on yourself and then being like, oh no, I'm all itchy? You know, do the negatives outweigh the positives?
Marijuana responsibly. You could have marijuana be clear-headed. You could have marijuana and not damage your body. Again, but we have to have even just scales. We have to look at things equally. You can't sit here and consume unhealthy processed fast food and then judge somebody that's smoking marijuana because they're dealing with their anxiety or they're just looking to unwind. I'm expecting and working for radical results in my health right now. So therefore I'm like, nah, I'm not touching anything. And I don't think alcohol is a sin. I don't think fast food is necessarily a sin, but it's one of those things that can you consume it responsibly? Can you consume it and be clear-headed? What's it doing to your body? If my body's the temple, hopefully this is making some sense to you guys. So, and in my personal life, I don't know a lot of people that consume marijuana responsibly and consume marijuana and be sober-minded.
I think that's part of the stigma, though. I don't think it's because people don't do it. I think it's because there's like this, like if you tell people you smoke weed, people are like, oh, I'll pray for you. And it's like, no, I found this as an answer to prayer. And people are like, what? Oh my gosh. I'll pray for you even more. The devil's lettuce got him. And it's like, the devil isn't allowed to make lettuce. I don't know where we got this idea that the devil just gets power on her. Like, I know the devil, I'm not saying he's not powerful, but whatever the devil intends for evil, God will use for good. So like, how is it that I got to show you the medical benefits too of just the science, not even the personal usage, but just what science has studied about this, because there are benefits and it's just funny.
Maybe one or two people I know that smoke weed and they're productive and they're high functioning and they're goal oriented and they love Jesus and they're in church. And I know very few people. Maybe Patricia, who was in the comment section, maybe she's one of those people and she's the minority of most people that smoke. And I know that's changing. I know weed culture is changing. I think it's very difficult to make an argument for it in terms of health. I think it's very difficult to make an argument for it in terms of being sober minded. But again, I don't need to find out. I think as a closing thought, this is my,
I think if you don't find out, you can't really argue sobriety. You would have to monitor them before and after the high and see how high they got. You can't just say, oh, you got high, so you're not sober anymore. See what I'm saying? Like, and because you don't even know like your limits, it's really hard to gauge other people's based on like a lack of experience with the product you're speaking of.
Thought. And I'm going to try to tread very lightly. Those of you guys that are using marijuana as a mental health medicine, meaning that you're struggling with gnarly anxiety, meaning you're struggling with addiction of some other sort. God would want us to be removed and free from any idol, from anything having dominion over our lives. And so if you're like, yo, I deal with depression, so therefore I smoke. I deal with anxiety, so therefore I smoke. I deal with whatever. And you're actually using it as medicine for mental health treatment. I would say God wants you to be free of any addiction. God wants you to and desires you to be free of any addiction. And I'll be honest with you guys. I've never struggled with marijuana. I've never struggled with alcohol. But about a year ago, I went into kind of a dark place with my health. And my thing wasn't marijuana or drugs. My thing was sugar. I got really addicted to sugar. I was consuming a lot of sugar. You could even go back and look at one of the weeklies we did in front of Peterson's Donuts and Escondido. And man, I was having so much sugar. I was having so many donuts. I know that sounds silly, like, oh man, my stroke. But if I was struggling with anxiety and pressure and doubt and all these mental things that many of us deal with, and I told you guys, well, I'm just having sugar to cope with it. You'd probably tell me that wasn't a good idea. You'd probably tell me that God wants to work on my heart and transform me and free me from some of the mental health stuff. Now, again, Man,
I've never had a struggle with sugar. I mean, maybe I do. Maybe I need to cut my sugar intake. But when it comes to marijuana, the effect that it has on your mind isn't not like sugar. So like you get, a Red Bull. Maybe it has a lot of sugar and a lot of like wake up. There's no comparison that I've found. And I wonder why that is. Like as a Christian, just knowing it to be a plant and then knowing how much of our body is like receptive to this specific plant. I mean, I feel like there's a purpose with it. Maybe not everybody finds the real purpose, but I do believe that there's a purpose for it and with it, and that in moderation, it's not even sinful. But let's see what he says.
Tread lightly, because some people have chemical imbalances and there's bipolar and all these different things. So I'm not a mental health expert, but I will say that I think God would want us to sleep well, would want us to eat well, would want us to be active, exercise. One of the reasons why I'm doing this video standing up is because all my other videos used to be sitting down. Now I'm standing up. I'm trying to be more active. I'm trying to live my life in a way where I'm just moving. And so hopefully that answers your question, man. Be gentle and be peaceful in the comment section below.
Did
Again,
he say if he
no
thought it was
drive-by, random Bible verses, but what about this? And you keep it peaceful. This channel is intimate enough and I'm petty enough to respond to you or flag your comment or completely ban you from this channel. So keep it peaceful. Let me know what you guys think about this topic. Can you consume marijuana responsibly? Can you consume it and be sober-minded? Are you being hypocritical in your judgment of marijuana and your judgment of people who may be smoking and sinning a little different than you? It's just so tread lightly. The answer to your question is, I don't know.
I don't know. You made me watch till the end to give me a Rocky 1 ending. Is it Rocky 1? Rocky 2? Which one do they tie? That was cool though. All right. So that's the video. That's the idea. Hope you liked it. In my opinion, it's not a sin. Sin as in it's not problematic on an individual basis. How you're doing it as an individual can become problematic very easily too. So I would say don't do it the same way you would start sugar. Like, you know what I mean? It is a life decision. It will affect you. It will affect your mind. It will affect your body. But not all of that will be negative. So not all of those effects will be negative. And if you can handle the enhancement or the effect, and if you feel as though it's enhancing you, it very well might be doing that through the medicinal effects that it has. So I would love to hear anybody else's opinion. If you watch this, if you like this, thank you. Appreciate you. Have a good night. Bye.